going on? It's Ash here coming at you today in Raid Shadow Legends. Welcome to the video, guys. Hopefully it finds you all doing well. Now listen, something's been gnawing at me for a while. Had to get off my chest. I've gone to make this video a few times now, and I haven't really done it because I wanted to kind of collect my thoughts and think about viable solutions that player might actually go for. But I've never mentioned this really ever on the channel, and I'm most curious to hear from you guys. Do you think this is an issue or not? And before I tell you what the problem is, let me just preface this by saying this is not meant to be, this video, some sort of scathing indictment of the state of the game or anything like that. Honestly, during wartime where the entire dev team had to relocate out of Kharkiv, Ukraine, I'm shocked that they've even added what they've added the last few months, right? I mean, we had the 3rd anniversary videos and stuff, which is really, really nice to see. We have time-saving mechanisms being added to the game. We have the super raids in Faction Wars, super raids in Doom Tower now. We have AI customization by round. I had made a whole video talking about the impact of that on my account. I really love that update. It's not massive, but it's really cool. We've had tavern improvements, new champions. They've added a decent amount. Nothing massive to the game since Hydra and Doom Tower, but really, overall, I'm really kind of enjoying the game. I'm happy with the state of the game. We could always nitpick. I mean, it's Raid Shadow Legends after all, right?
Well, I don't like to feel good. I like to feel evil. Oh.
But with all that said, I'm here to talk about Void Champions and Void Shards. So here's the thing, right? A Sacred Shard, or let's not even talk about Sacreds. Let's talk about Ancients, because Sacreds are different, right? You have a 6% chance instead of a 0.5% chance at a Legendary, so 12 times more, obviously, and you can get Epic. No rares, right? No rares, only Epics and Legendaries out of Sacred Shards. So we know why Sacred Shards are expensive in this game. Ancients and Voids, they follow the same exact rules, not only on the chance to pull a rare versus an Epic versus a Legendary champion, but also, oof, to my dismay, the Mercy system, right? So Epics and Legendaries both follow the same rules for Voids and Ancients on the Mercy system. After 200 summons without a Legendary or 20 summons without an Epic, you get a whopping 5% extra chance per shard, you know? So that is the Mercy system. Now the bummer is, it's the same again for Voids and for Ancients. So why is this even a problem, Ash? You know, who cares, right? You know? Well, it's a problem because of the cost. So an Ancient Shard costs roughly 80 cents based on the value packs that they routinely give us. Or if you just want...
Hello there.
Want to straight up buy an Ancient Shard from the shop?
Hello there.
Who is the brains of this operation?
Which you can do so, what, one a day? It's 99 cents. Of course, you can do the math depending on where you are in the world, but it's basically a US dollar, right? For one Ancient Shard, or 80 cents based on the overall value of the packs. Now, a solo Void Shard, some people say around $4.25, $4.24 value. Some people say up to $5 value. So depending on the pack, obviously, that will dictate the value. But safe to say, a Void Champion or a Void Shard should be around 4 to 5 times the value of an Ancient Shard, right? Or an Ancient Champion, or, you know, like a non-Void Champion, obviously, because you can only pull Void Champions out of Void Shards, right? So that leads me to believe that, you know, in a vacuum, it's not quite as easy to just say this like this. I'm oversimplifying things, but listen, Void Champions ought to be a lot better because they're so much more expensive to get your hands on, right? And it used to be that most of the best champions in the game were Void, right? And that makes sense. That makes sense. So champions like, you know, when you ask who the best champion in the game is, a lot of people will say Krisk or Siphi or Warlord or Hegemon, right? But now, as time has gone by, and I don't necessarily even have a problem with this, think about it. They've added some of the best champions in the game are not Void, right? So we have Brogni, we have Trunda, I mean, we have so many, right? Valkyrie, Martyr, the only 2 counterattack champions in the game, because one might say, well, listen, Ash, the Void Champions have the most unique skill sets. Only Voids can do this, right? But wait, I mean, all 3 of the counterattack champions, Skullcrusher, Valkyrie, and Martyr, they're all, you know, Spirit and Force Affinity. There's no Voids in that category. Same thing with Ally Attack. There's a mixture of Voids and non-Voids. Krila Witch Arm, and Lenicus the Chosen, Farrakhan the Fat, and Cardial, right? So, and Necrot the Great. So listen, there's a lot of great Void champions. There's a lot of really crappy Void legendaries as well, and a ton of crappy Void epics in the game, right? And a bunch of crappy Void rares.
You know, a lot of people ask why.
Why treat the customer this way? Why? Because fuck them, that's why.
You know, just to throw out some examples, there's a ton, right? There's a ton of crappy non-voids, right? There's a bunch of like below average champions. But even just going through here, I mean, Constantine, the Dayborn, he's not really a good champion at all, right? Let's go through some others here. We have, let's see, Angar. Angar, you know, he's not a bad champion, but he's extremely average. If he wasn't Void, you'd say, okay, he's just all right, right? At the very best, excuse me. We have, oh, they're adding new ones. They're adding new ones as well. They have Jingwan most recently, right? And Jingwan, I mean, look at dude, he's not a great champion, right?
I've never even got to find out who I am. You want me to change? That's crazy.
He's not a great champion at all. They have Vlad. They add them even as fusions, right? So they have Vlad. He was a fragment summon, I believe. But they're adding a lot of Void champions that just aren't that appealing, right? And to their credit, they've actually gone through and buffed a lot of these Void legendary champions. Most recently, they buffed Nithwi Blood Twin, and I have to say, he actually is pretty cool now. That A3 deals enough damage to justify actually using him in even Platinum tier arena, in the arena, right? So especially if you have the gear to back it up. So I like that they've gone in there and given buffs. Solus as well, thinking of champion Void legendaries that they've recently gone in there. In Whirlum Frost King, right? So they changed his A3 from a 6 to a 5 turn cooldown, can be booked down to A3 instead of 4. So I love that they did this, right? What are you saying, Ash, here? What is the big gripe, bro? Well, I think that Voids ought to be a lot better, right? They ought to be a lot better overall, but especially epics, There's a big Void epic problem right now. So there's two solutions to this whole Void issue. Solution number one is you just make Voids a lot better. You give mediocre or underwhelming Voids, you give them all buffs, right? Now, about a year ago, they came at us and they said, hey, there's gonna be a massive Void rebalancing. And to their credit, it was a very significant Void rebalancing. They went in there, they touched, this is the same update that they buffed Solus, they buffed Whirlum Frost King, and a bunch of other Void legendaries. But they did not touch the Void epics. There are so many, I mean, Void epics, it just seems like it's totally random, right? What makes a Void epic versus a Void non, or a epic non-Void? You get what I'm saying? Faceless, Golden Reaper, Whisper, okay. You know, I could just keep going down the line here. Nobody in Undead Horde, okay, point proven. But again here, Skimfos, Umbral, Padma, you know, not bad. But again, I mean, you can look at the non-Voids too and be like, okay, they're not bad either, like Magnar, Garlos, Achak, you know, so Allure. The thing is with epics especially, it just seems totally random, right? I mean, let's look at the Bannerlords, for example. Great example, right? Ursula, definitely Void, one of the better champions out there. Warcaster, Azure, Rowan, a Void epic ought to be like really special. Really good, no? I do think that they have, when we talk about rares too, because I think they ought to touch the rares too. The rares is a tale of two stories, right? The really good Void champions, the Void rares, are really good. They are what they ought to be. There's Cold Heart, there's Reliquary Tender, there's Bellower, right? Those are all Void, fantastic. However, again, there's so many bad Void rares. And listen, when you're pulling a $5 shard as opposed to a $1 shard, and you pull a Void, even a rare, to me, it doesn't sit very well that, you know, they're basically the same. You know, with a couple exceptions to the rule. So I think that Plarium, my biggest gripe right now is even the Mercy, right? I mean, there's a few ways to fix it. If Voids were on their own Mercy, which they would never do, right? Because having a separate, you know, Mercy, but the same odds really doesn't make any sense, does it? If it's why would they have an easier Mercy system for the more expensive shard? It really is something they'd probably never do. But when I'm pulling Voids, knowing how much it costs, and listen, I'm a content creator, I spend a lot of money in this game, and I open a lot of shards here in this game. So like, listen, I'm gonna open them either way. But if I didn't make content for Raid Shadow Legends, I don't know. You can get by, unless you're like one of the very few 0.00001% of players who actually care about the end of the week, staying up until 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. or wherever you are in the world to try to finish top platinum. The rest of the players, I think I'd probably just skip Void shards. You know, I'd open them obviously if I had them in 2-time events, but I would never buy them ever if I didn't make content here on the channel. 200 of them? 200 of them to get the extra chance at a mercy, basically, to get a legendary void, right? When there's so many good champions that are even better champions. No, I don't want the prophet skin.
Look at my kids.
There's so many better champions out there that are non-void, you know? To me, the balance has shifted. They've released a lot of compelling non-void champions, and I don't want them to stop doing that. However, I would love Plarium to go in there and take a long, hard look at every void legendary that needs a buff. I named, what, 4 or 5 of them in today. They just buffed Carl, for example. I still think he might need a little bit more of a buff, but, you know, I like to see them buffing him nonetheless, right? But there's a few legendaries that still need a significant buff, in my opinion, because it ought to feel so special when you pull a void legendary. They ought to be really good. Now, if we go too far and make them so OP, which I'm not asking to do, then it just further divides, you know, the super pay to win and everybody else in the game. And if you spend $1,000, you can get the most OP champions. I don't want that. I don't want that. But the epics especially, that's why I made, you know, the key part of this video, the main focus of my rant today has been epics and rares, because epics and rares benefit really everybody, and you don't need to open a billion shards to have, you know, a bunch of rare void champions, right? So how about you guys? Are you there with me? And again, look at, I mean, it just Harkin, you know, so why? I mean, there's some use cases for these champions. They're not all trash. Sky Touch, I love Sky Touch. But again, I'm looking for more compelling. Make it worth the bang for your buck, right? Because same Mercy Timer, same chances at pulling them, but they cost 5 times more. I'm belaboring the point, guys. I think you understand where I'm coming from. I want to hear from you guys. Am I an idiot? Do you disagree with me? Are things just fine the way they are? I mentioned this, you know, in a video last week, but I want them to stop adding. I like new champions, right? I want them to keep adding them, but maybe, you know, temper it a little bit, right? Maybe pull back the reins a little bit and put that team in charge of picking new champions for the game. Put that team and the dev team, put them on buffing all the void epics, not all, but all that who need it, right? The void epics and the void rares. All right, guys, tell me why I'm wrong or why you agree with me in the comments below. I look forward to it, guys. Just trying to have a conversation with you, but this has been... Every time I pull those void shards, I'm like, oh, this does not feel right. This does not feel right. Thank you for watching all the way till the end, guys. Appreciate you sending your love. And as always, take care, guys.